Supergirl that if you saw Superman, it was like his back as he was flying away, like you saw his cape flutter. Or what I thought was hilarious was the idea that Superman and Supergirl were texting back and forth, which I
Well,
thought was hilarious.
and they did the same thing on Naomi. The shot of Superman is from like like 1,000 feet away, and it's the back of Superman. So you can't even
Right.
tell if it's Tyler or not.
I know. Have you been keeping up with Naomi?
I did, yeah.
So
Um, I will say that I do like the show more than I did,
okay.
and I think that I might be slightly out of the target audience
It
it's
does seem to
going
be
for.
it does seem to be a little bit younger in its audience. I feel like there's a lot. They're really trying to slowly build. They don't want to come out and give us all the information right away.
but but in the moment when it's happening, I'm like they go back and forth. It's like you're not asking the right question,
Right.
and
Right.
I'm like, what do you mean? Like it's just the two of us. Just tell me, you
Right.
know.
Right.
But
Um,
they do call attention to their own. This episode, other episode ended with Naomi jumping off the bridge, and then he starts, with teaching Naomi martial arts, and he has her with tennis balls, and he's like, "We start small. We don't learn to run before we walk." She's like,
right.
"You just had me jump off a bridge."
Right. I thought she had a really good point. I'm like, why start small and then have me jump off a bridge last episode?
And that's a pretty. I mean, that's pretty drastic. If it didn't work,
Right. He's like, you'd break some bones.
yeah, I'm like,
So
"Oh, that'll go well the rest of the season."
I know. Right now, I feel like Naomi is some combination of Nancy Drew and Scooby Doo. That's really what it feels like. Somehow, Naomi can't do anything without a tag team of like 5 or 6 other people.
Everybody in her group is also like the show is being very deliberate about like everybody in this group could potentially be a boyfriend or girlfriend.
Right. And they could all be a boyfriend or girlfriend at the same time.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm
Like,
like I'm like, okay, I mean, you don't walk into a room and Google eyes with this person like that for like a minute or two unless you're gonna ask them questions.
I know. It's a very interesting kind of thing. Um, so I'm still hanging on. I'm giving the show some time. I think it has a lot of potential. At the same time, I feel like um, there's some things that I need from it. It needs to be. They seem to kind of like wait till the very end of the episode
Yeah.
for Naomi to do anything special or for them to do any major reveal, and they need to kind of pick up some speed a little bit.
Well, and Naomi's friends know next to nothing about what's going on, and they're willing to break laws
Right.
and sneak people around. And there's a lot of jumping in and out of windows. And she's like 15 or 16 in the show, and like she does all these things. She blows up a science lab at a university, and the parents are all like, "We are very upset with you, you know so you should go to your room." She's like, "You've never grounded me in my whole entire life." I'm like, okay, I found the problem.
Right.
I know,
Right.
I know what the problem is the parents haven't been parenting, you
You know,
know.
you know what's funny though? In my life, I've always thought that Jill and I were pretty lenient, permissive parents. Right? I mean, I never thought that we parented with an iron fist, but man, I feel like Hitler next to those parents. It's almost like,
But like, tell me this:
yeah,
with your daughters, how many of your daughters are on a first name basis with the local tattoo artist and the local used car salesman?
yeah, it's a no.
So I mean,
It's a no.
I'm like, oh, and they're doing the scary thing back and forth too.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh wait, what? Okay, what's going on there? You know,
I think I'm just surprised that the parents are not shocked at all. Like they don't even blink an eyelash when she says some things, and I'm like, okay, I get it.
But you find out at the end of the last episode that they knew something all along. And my only response to that was, if they knew this for the last 15 years, they really haven't been preparing much. With the father being in government work and they live in a military town, you know, I'm hoping that there's going to be a little bit more of an explanation to why that is. Did you think that that was protecting them? Does anybody else know? Does the father know the tattooed Thanagarian guy?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, again, they clearly know more. Um, they are like the Kents. That's what they're really setting things up. That for Naomi, her parents are like the Kents were to Superman. So
Yeah,
they're really making that parallel between the two of them of being, adopted aliens on a different planet. They're making that really clear about how that's set up.
well,
Um,
and one of the things that I'm also interested, because I've done some reading on the comic book
yeah,
and how the comic book parallels with the show right now. And are they aliens? Or are they just from another Earth? We're dealing with multiversal aspects with
I'm
this
glad.
show as well.
I know. I'm really glad that you brought that up because, D lets us know that he's a Thanagarian, right? So he's got wings. He's a Thanagarian, which means that he's from another planet. And so, much like how Superman had crash landed on Earth, right from Krypton, Naomi clearly had a very similar experience. But in her case, it doesn't seem like she came alone. That there were other aliens that also arrived. Either they were already here, or they arrived when at the same
I
time.
I believe that Naomi and the car dealership guy and possibly the art lady, they're all earthlings from another universe's Earth.
Okay,
And it's going to depend on how much of the comic book they follow.
right.
They could just easily write them off to be they're from another planet and we're not dealing with another Earth. But as far as I understand it, in the comic books, they're from another Earth, and that portal is closer to like a boom tube technology.
Okay.
So, and I don't know. I don't want to spoil too much.
No, well, number one, um, on Between a Pod and a Hard Place, we've never really cared a whole lot about spoilers, and this is really the place for us to go and talk about what our theories are. So I'm curious about if that's going to be it. It would explain why they've guarded that technology so heavily, because you wouldn't
Yeah.
want anybody to have the ability to boom tube anywhere in the universe, right?
Well, it takes a lot of power, and that thing that looks like a 5 pound barbell weight is some type of technology that unlocks abilities.
Right.
So obviously Naomi doesn't know how to use it, and for some reason the Thanagarian guy does. We don't know exactly. Was he on Earth fighting with Superman on the Earth that they're all from? I don't know how he ties in with Superman, and which Superman. Is it the Superman that we know, or is it a completely different Superman?
Right. My guess is that it would be an alternate version of Superman, like a Justice League kind of situation.
Um,
That would make sense to me.
well, because you did have the Thanagarians in the Stargirl mythos as well, but it was from a different name.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's funny because in some, like when we talk about Hawkman and Hawkgirl, sometimes they show it as they're ancient Egyptians, um, who have who became Hawks, which totally kind of blows that whole "we came from another planet" mythology out of the water. So
Yeah, and that's because over the course of 50 years of writing comic books, they've had different writers, retcon origin stories,
right,
which is once again it's a problem with having established characters, but this might be a new character, but is of the same species.
right.
As I understand it, the Thanagarians are aliens that are long lived, and their wings are a technology.
Okay,
So they're not like biologically part bird, but they're an alien with a technology. Apparently, wings are really useful.
well, I mean, who doesn't want to know how to fly?
Yeah, but if you have the technology to make something to let you fly, you know, would you have like the steel suit? You can fly in the steel suit, but I guess like you don't have to worry about running out of energy if it's like biosurgery to yourself or something. I don't know. There's gonna be I feel like there's gonna be a lot more fleshing out of that.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing too. So I'm holding off judgment on Naomi. I'm giving it the chance to kind of tell its story, but I do feel like I'm a little bit on the fence, just because there some 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 writing issues a little bit.
Hmm.
You know,
One of the things that they have the thing where everybody does like the googly eyed look to each other, and the other thing is like everybody like delivers their line with like a little bit of a smirk,
right,
like in the last in the episode 9 of Star Wars, where like they're in the ship, and it was like, is it the character flying the ship, or is it the actor flying the ship having a good time pretending to be the character?
right. I feel like they're in a place where there's so many extra characters that they really don't need, that I kind of go, who are you again? Right?
Yeah,
And they really do all seem to have a very similar kind of personality. There's not a whole lot that differentiates them from one another other than their complete and utter devotion to Naomi. It makes me
yeah.
wonder if one of her abilities is that, that she can mesmerize people.
She has pheromone abilities.
I mean, clearly, I had thought that Naomi had powers like Superman, but considering their willingness to do essentially everything she wants, and the fact that almost everybody in town loves her,
Well, because she's a high school student that has the biggest Superman comic book website, but apparently people make live action Superman appearances pretty regularly, and she always is the first to get the scoop. But Superman didn't exist in their universe.
right? Steven says she's a vampire from True Blood, and she can glamour people. Again, I think there's something about that. Um,
I'd rather have True Blood than Riverdale.
yeah. So we'll see what happens. It just seems to me there's something too good to be true about that a little bit. So we'll see if I'm right or if you're right or if Steven's right. Um, but
I've
I'm
I've
still
I've got a couple more secrets that I'm holding close to the chest,
okay.
and I don't know if it's going to be right or not, but most of them are derived from comic book land theories.
Okay, I will
And
say that what I've heard from the comic books and from everybody else is they've given the writers of the show a lot of artistic liberty. You know,
I mean, and like the comic book just came out in like 2019,
yeah.
like the
There's
first time.
so there's
So I
not a
mean,
whole
there's
lot
a
to go
lot
off
of
of.
character growth that can be made.
Yeah, they're still developing in the comics too, so that
Yeah.
makes sense. Anyway, I'm just curious to see where it all goes.